Shout out to LeVar Burton, Reading Rainbow.
We've been watching a lot of the end of year videos and kind of feel like maybe we missed out on a few things. If we do happen to come across some of the things that other people were raving about, I want to bring it home.
We're going to do your Russell's pick.
Russell?
Yep. Disco 9 at 140. Disco 11 also at 140. This is one of the top picks. That was number 4 on Bourbon Junkies list. Hey everybody, we are back from our haul last night. We did crack these open last night, as you can maybe tell on camera. We had a little pour of each to see what we're working with. Also wanted to bring you some tasting notes in our new set. Miranda did a great job setting all this up. You may have seen the short, and if not, you should like, comment, and subscribe down below to get a view of that. But wanted to bring you some tasting notes as well as kind of a mini review and kind of talk about what we picked up last night. What do you think we should start with?
I think we should start with the Russell's, being it's a little lower proof.
So we're going to get set up. We're going to bring you Russell's tasting notes, and then we'll be right back.
So we have an opportunity tonight to do a little A/B testing because we already happen to have another Russell's. Tell me a little bit about both what we picked up last night and what we already have.
Yeah, so both of these are going to be Wild Turkey Distillations products.
Okay.
This one is their private barrel selection, which is like stores will go and have an experience there, taste a bunch of barrels, and then they'll put their name on it. And they do a really good job. So if you look at the back here, and we were talking about this last night, but they do a really good job with like the transparency of how long it was in barrels. This one was in barrels for 9 years. Who selected it? We picked this up. Total Beverages, and it's got all kinds of dates, like what floor of the warehouse it was on, etc. And that matters because of the humidity, right? Like we all know heat rises, and so in the upper floors of a warehouse or of a rick house where they're storing these things, those barrels are breathing more, which means typically a lot more kind of liquid in and out of those barrels. And so this came from the 4th floor. I'm not quite sure. We haven't visited Wild Turkey yet.
I hope to.
But I don't know how many floors there are, but certainly more than a couple, because this one came from floor 4. And then this one is 10-year single barrel. You can get it pretty much everywhere, not just the particular store pick or whatever. It's available everywhere. Difference between this and price is about $10.
Okay, and so when I'm out there looking for things on the shelves, as far as comparison, I'm looking at, okay, so we have 10 years here, 9 years here, roughly probably the same mash bill. So our difference is the barrels that were blended together for the selection, 1 less year. And so what did that do to our proof? 110?
Yep, and the proof here is also 110.
110.
So that's going to be pretty standard. I think most of Russell's, their single barrel products are going to be at that 110 mark.
So we really honestly have very similar situations.
We do. There is an exception, though, and that is that here they've personally, the people tasting it, in this case, Total Beverages, they've tasted and A/B'd a bunch simultaneously, whereas here it's like this lot of barrels is selected for the single barrel product, ship it out, and they don't necessarily care as much about the particular bottle. Yeah. Whereas here it's a lot more care.
Side note, we met the gentleman who went along for this particular trip, and he was raving about it, and it was their first stop. So we thought we would add it to our collection.
Like you said, we've got the A/B here on the left, our left, your right. Here we've got the standard single barrel offering. On our right, we've got the one that we picked up last night. So the bottles match the glasses for easy following it at home. So I'm going to start with the standard stuff. For the record, this is one of my favorite go-tos when pairing with like a cigar. It's a great Friday, Saturday pour, great weekend pour. immediately for me, it's standard bourbon notes: vanilla, caramel, cherry.
I'm not as big on your traditional bourbon profile. I like more words, more flavors, more complexity, which usually means it needs to be finished. This is very like single note on the nose for me.
And I do gravitate towards more traditional bourbon profiles, although I love anything that's been like double oaked or toasted. I like the deeper, darker complexities. I like dark fruits a lot. Not as much into spice and barrel spice and like rye spice. Even as much as you tend to like that a lot more. But.
Which the finish on this, because the proof is pretty decent, it does have a tiny bit of spice. The finish is a bit spicy.
It is. I like it a lot, actually. It's a little cinnamony on the end, but the mid palate is standard bourbon. It's a cherry, vanilla, caramel, a little butterscotch, but not super butterscotchy. Just
no caramel, vanilla for sure. And I would agree that the mid palate is more interesting. I like the finish. I think my favorite thing, though, is the coating of the mouth is pretty nice.
Yeah, it's really nice. All right, so this is the standard single barrel product I love. Many of you may love. And then this is the private barrel selection. So, PBS. Viewers like you. Shout out to LeVar Burton, Reading Rainbow. It smells sweeter.
For sure, sweeter and significantly brighter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it went from just being caramel, vanilla, to a little bit of like a citrus. I also smell more cherry here than the first one.
Yeah.
It also smells less hot, which is interesting. Maybe it's because I'm smelling a few other notes instead of just a one note situation.
No, that's a good call. I think the fruit components, the like elevated cherry, the sweeter notes are like kind of depressing the ethanol notes.
Yes.
Let's give it a try. I mean, come on. Okay.
So like I said, this is not going to be my go-to. It is significantly more approachable and more interesting than this guy.
And I, for one, love this guy. But this guy clears this guy.
Yeah, they did a really good job picking this barrel.
It's also, and this is probably the most controversial thing I'll say all video and maybe all channel. The first pour out of a bottle is usually the worst for me. I do think that air exposure makes a huge difference to bourbon.
Which was one of the reasons that we went ahead and got that out of the way last night. I feel like that we would give a much fairer review after you get through that.
Yeah. And, I mean, I liked this last night, but it's far better today.
And just a little side note to maybe the ladies out there that are just like trying to see what all this bourbon stuff is, and you're just like tasting and smelling. If you find something that you're not crazy about, it is not rude to leave it in the glass.
Yeah.
So I'm probably done with this because this is not my highlighted taste. It is good. I respect the quality, but I'm probably not going to finish that. And you should never feel like you have to either.
And guys, you should never make the ladies feel like they should have to finish it either, because that just means that I'm going to take out the funnel and put it back in the bottle for me later. But on this, I get a lot of brown sugar. The caramel's ramped up. I get more cherry and the fruit components on the nose. On the palate, I get much more of that dark, like turbinado sugar. One of my kind of guilty pleasures at a coffee house is like a Cubano, which is like a latte with brown sugar, condensed milk, etc. This has reminiscent notes of that for sure.
Gonna say something that maybe a few of you might not agree on. This is a little bit nicer to be your standard mixer but I do think that this would highlight really well in an old fashioned.
No, that's a great call. Like I wouldn't put this with like a lot of other ingredients like high simple syrup cocktails or things like that, but in a spirit forward cocktail that accents the bourbon that you're drinking or the whiskey that you're drinking, I would agree with that. This is fantastic. This would be fantastic in an old fashioned. This was Russell's. Have you had a PBS? Have you had a private barrel selection? How does it compare against Russell's Reserve single barrel for you? Leave a comment down below. We'd love to read all of your thoughts. And for those of you who've commented already on our other videos, I really appreciate that. It's awesome. Thoroughly enjoy kind of engaging with all of you, etc. And to the most recent commenter, we're going to see about getting Miranda a bottle of Tropics soon. So.
Oh, thanks, guys. I appreciate that. I really want one.
And we're back. We've got Bardstown Disco 11. From the outset of this video, we said that we wanted to pick something up that was on a lot of top 10 lists, and this did indeed make it. I think Bourbon Junkies put it at 4.
Yeah, they rated it really, really high.
They did.
So this is our FOMO.
Yeah, this is a FOMO bottle. $140. We did find it at MSRP, which is pretty typical of the Discovery series from Bardstown. But like we were talking about the Russell's Reserve transparency, Bardstown also does a really good job with the transparency. They put the blend on the label, and so for those that may not know, Discovery as a series is a number of bottles where they take bourbons from different areas and actually blend it together. They put the blend on the side of the label, and so that's really cool to see. So this is actually the first all Kentucky blend since Discovery 4, which is a really cool thing. A lot of people loved it for that reason. So just looking at this, 73% of this blend is 13-year-old.
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
Bourbon, and it does put that price into perspective. I mean, you are paying for a few extra years kind of in the barrel. 21% 10-year, and then 6% of this is actually the first time that Bardstown distillate has made it in to a blend as well, which is really cool. So we're going to pour this, and we'll be right back. And we're back. We've got Bardstown in hand, but unlike Wild Turkey, this is also a distillery that we visited. Full transparency, we haven't toured it yet. We might have to go back for a tour, but we have visited. What did you think? Bardstown, visiting Bardstown the first time.
Okay, so this really has nothing to do with what's in the bottle, but we've had the privilege to live really close to wine country for a few years, and
specifically Napa Valley.
Napa, Sonoma County. And had the softest spot in my heart just for the feeling that you get when you leave the city and you enter basically into the country, right? And all the sights and smells that come with that are my first impression with them, as they are trying to make your Kentucky Bourbon Trail experience much like your Napa or Sonoma experience. Their grounds were immaculate. Rick houses aren't always very pretty to look at, but they'd spent some money on a few of them, especially facing the front of their property. They're really, really pretty.
Yeah. It's like black and glass with wood mixed in. Very gorgeous.
Yeah.
Grounds.
Hands down, some of the best on-site food that we experienced throughout the whole thing. So if you happen to find yourself on the Bourbon Trail and need a spot in particular for lunch, because most of them close at 4 o'clock, which is crazy, you should stop here for your lunch spot. Yeah,
totally supportive of what Bardstown is doing. I will say that we tasted a lot of bourbon while we were there. A lot of the disco stuff at the time, it was 9 and 10. 10 had just come out, I believe, and so we tried 9 and 10, a lot of the collaborative series, which, by the way, Bardstown does a lot of collaborations with others as well.
Yeah, that's kind of their thing. Right?
Yeah, not other distilleries, but other wine companies, Goose Island Beer Company, etc. Founders, a brewery. And they're very known for their collaborative series. And I'll be honest, I wasn't in love with a lot of the stuff that they had on the bar at the time. I also know that it was kind of the dark ages for the Disco series. Based on a lot of other reviews, Disco 11 is the best disco since 4. And so that's really cool to see.
A lot in between.
Yeah, it is a lot in between. Just immediately on the nose, I'm getting that baking spice. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of ethanol. The proof here is, what was it, 118? Yeah, 118.1.
This is very, very deep, very, very sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Like a burnt caramel.
Yeah, the vanilla and caramel on this one is a lot different than the Russells. Like, this one reminds me, honestly, of like one of my favorite older candies. And I know every one of you is expecting me to say like toffee or butterscotch or Werther's Original. That's such a common note. For me, this is Cowtails. It's like the caramel with the vanilla on the inside.
They were like 25 cents. They were the best after school situation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The palate for me on this one is very, very pleasant up front. But then it turns into a spice bomb, a mixture of rye spice, baking spice, barrel spice on the finish. And that makes it drink hotter than I think it actually is. Like it drinks above 120, but it's not proof. It's not ethanol. It's not the alcohol content. It's the spice of the bourbon. And it's not a high rye mash bill. High rye mash bill is like 20% or more. This is, the highest is 13%. So this isn't a high rye mash bill. It's just for whatever reason. Yeah, it's showing off for whatever reason.
I
for
kind of
sure.
like that a lot.
I do like what it does to the tongue. I like the effervescence. It's almost like pop roxy on the tongue. Because of that,
we'll piggyback on that spice bomb. I think that's a pretty good description. Because of that, even though it's very traditional bourbon in its profile, it's a lot more fun for me.
Yeah, it's pretty complex for sure. I like this a heck of a lot more than I did last night.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It really is good, guys.
I liked it a lot more.
$40 good?
That's the question.
That's tough for me.
Yeah.
Really, anything over $100 gets kind of tough for me. I do better if I don't see price tags. I like things a lot better that way.
If this didn't have that spice bomb finish,
it would be boring.
Maybe for you. For me, it would be like a top three bourbon last year that I had, which is saying a lot.
Now, what it can't take away, like even if you took the spice out for me, the complexity of the nose is really nice. Mm-hmm. The depthness of it just in general is really nice. The way it coats your mouth is pretty great. The finish is long.
Yeah.
So there are some things that stand alone by itself, but the spice bomb is what makes it where I'm curious to have a few more sips instead of just like, this is a great bourbon, but no thank you.
Yeah, I've got 3 notes that I personally look for in a bourbon that just like elevate it to me. Number 1 is actually raisin. If I find raisin in a bourbon, I'm just automatically in love with it. Number 2 is oak. Like I mentioned from the outset, I like a lot of double oak stuff, etc. Number 3 is tobacco. And this has that sweet tobacco, almost like Woodford Double Oak does, kind of up front. It's a mixture of oak and tobacco up front. And like from the beginning through the mid palate, it's like very present. But then the spice takes over. And that's where it loses me personally. You might be opposite.
Yeah, I think I am opposite. Yeah. I get excited towards the back. The nose has me interested enough to even put it to my lips. At the beginning's like, oh, okay. And then the mouth coating says, oh, let's, keep going. But the spice bomb is like, oh, let's have one more sip.
Yeah, and that spice lingers. Mm-hmm. The finish is long, which I appreciate. The finish is long. The cinnamon, nutmeg, almost red pepper is like on the tip of the tongue. It's not in the back of the throat, which is good because that would be worse, I think. even now, you guys have seen my last sip. Even now, I'm still getting that effervescent pop rock sensation, which is that's not proof. I mean, 118 is not hazmat. It's not like crazy off the charts proof.
No, I think we should be respectful in the fact that for people who don't like proof or people who are just getting started, 118 is a little
That's
hot.
true. Yeah, that is true. It is a little on the hotter side.
And it's going to feel like a little bit of a kick.
Yeah. That's true.
The Kentucky hug here isn't that present.
No.
But yeah, if you're just getting into things, and honestly anything over like 100 could feel pretty hot.
If you're starting out in bourbon, like I would say 105 and over is getting pretty hot.
You shouldn't be scared of it because it does change the complexity, and you might find that you appreciate it. You just should drink less of it. But to start out with, the something between 115 and 125 might knock your socks off.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so am I glad that we bought this last night? Yes. Am I happy about the price? Not as much, but Derek did, mention that majority of this is 13 years old.
Yeah.
That's something to respect.
And not just the majority, not like 52%,
no,
but like an overwhelming majority, and then 21% is 10 year. So it's only 6% at a 6-year mark. So you're getting, 94% 10-year or older whiskey that's been blended by some of the best in the world. They've been doing this for 11 bottles now.
Yeah.
And so, that is kind of a factor.
The perfect price, I think, point for me for this would be right at that $100.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like maybe 110, 115, something like that. But, value-wise, I'd compare this to like an Elijah Craig barrel proof, where at that $90, $100 mark, maybe you pay a little bit more for the latest batch or a private barrel selection of Elijah Craig or whatever. But 140 is a little steep for me. That said, this is not going to be one that I'm going to gravitate towards on a random weekend, and so that 140 is going to last and make this experience a little more special.
Yeah, this will be around on the shelf all year, and we'll pull it out when company comes over, just so they can also have the same opportunity to experience something that a lot of people put on their top list this year.
All right, so grade time. We have tried the 2 bottles that we purchased during our hunt. On the Russell's Private Barrel, give it a letter grade, A, B, C, D, F. Plus or minuses are allowed. What would you give the Russell's Private Barrel selection?
I'm going to score it as, am I going to drink it again? Probably. And then also, did I think it's a good representation of what it says it is? Mm-hmm. So for that, I'd probably say a really strong C+.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so I think C to me was like, hey, you did a good job, but I don't want it. I don't think I would drink it again.
For me, my grades are always and forever going to be very subjective. It is, what do I feel about the bourbon
today?
Emotionally, and I love Russell's Reserve, like I mentioned from the outset. Even the standard offering is one of my favorites to just sip on. For this one, it's $10 more, same proof. You get a little bit extra, like sweet characteristics, deeper flavors, etc. I'd probably go A-, maybe B+, kind of right at that 90 range for me, is where I would put the Russell's. And obviously, because it's a single barrel, because it's private barrel selection, it's going to vary store to store. And so don't take that grade and then go out to your local spot and expect the same experience. Although I'm willing to bet it's probably a pretty positive experience. But your mileage may vary. It's going to vary from store pick to store pick.
Yep.
What about the Bardstown?
The price bothers me, but the experience is significantly better. Would I be happy to bring this out when company comes over? Yes. So for that reason, I'll probably give it a B.
Yeah. I would go B minus only because of price. I think it's super complex. I love the tobacco up front. The effervescence, the pop rock sensation is A, still happening, and B, very interesting. I don't like the spice on the end, but at the same time, everything up until that point is like an A experience, and then the spice drops it for me. And so I'll give it a B, primarily on that spice note and price. Spice and price, not for me.
Interesting. Can I backtrack a second for the Russells?
Yeah.
So, speaking of money, I know I said that, this is not what I absolutely want to drink. But if you asked me, would I spend the extra $10 for that barrel pick?
Yeah.
All day long.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. The extra $10 for the private barrel selection, definitely worth it. So there you have it. We've got, what was our average grade on the Russells? You gave it a C, I gave it an A. We'll call it a B.
Yeah.
B to B minus maybe.
Yeah.
And then we've got a B on this one. So two pretty good picks from last night. Thanks for joining us. Cheers, y'all.
Cheers.